Hi, my name is Meg from the Children's Department at Sable Library, and I'm so excited to welcome you to my read-along of The Story of Doctor Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. In order to make sure that we're all able to do this read-along truly together, I'm going to show you quickly before we get started how you can access a copy of this book online through the Sable Library. So we're going to start on our website, sablelibrary.org, and if you click on Library Services, we're going to click on the Children's Department. Once that loads for us, once it loads, we're going to scroll down just slightly so we can access the Tumble Book Library. And if you sign in through the library website, you don't need to worry about inputting your library barcode or anything like that. So this is the Tumble Book Library. There's tons of options on here for you to read. There's read-alongs where it'll read to you, as opposed to this read-along where I'm going to read to you. There's picture book storybooks, there's some videos, there's animal stories, which really ties in with our Tales and Tales summer reading program this year. But for our purposes, we're going to click on ebooks, the little red tab. And if we scroll down to children's classics, we'll be able to use little arrows to find the story of Dr. Dolittle, which is what we're going to be reading together for the purpose of this program. If you click Read Online, it'll open up a new tab where you'll be able to see the story, and we're going to read in there. We're going to be reading 3 chapters or 3 chapter sections per each of these video recordings, so that way we will get through our story in about 7 video sessions. And then our 8th session is going to be an in-person book discussion, family book discussion about the story of Dr. Dolittle. I'm really excited to see you there, so if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to register for that program at sablelibrary.org. Happy reading! Hi! Welcome back to the virtual read-along of The Story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting. My name is Miss Meg from the Children's Department at Sable Library, and today we're going to be reading chapters 7, 8, and 9. If you missed the first 6 chapters, we read those last week, and you can find those videos in my playlist on youtube.com/sablelibrary. Without further ado, here's chapter 7. The Bridge of Apes. Queen Ermintrude had never in her life seen her husband so terrible as he got that night. He gnashed his teeth with rage. He called everybody a fool. He threw his toothbrush at the palace cat. He rushed round in his nightshirt and woke up all his army and sent them into the jungle to catch the doctor. Then he made all the servants go to his cooks and his gardens and his barber and Prince Bumpo's tutor even. The queen, who was tired from dancing in a pair of tight shoes, was packed off to help the soldiers in their search. All this time the doctor and his animals were running through the forest towards the land of the monkeys as fast as they could go. Gub-Gub, with his short legs, soon got tired, and the doctor had to carry him, which made it pretty hard when they had the trunk and the handbag with them as well. The king of the Jolliginki thought it would be easy for his army to find them, because the doctor was in a strange land and would not know his way. But he was wrong, because the monkey, Chi-Chi, knew all the paths through the jungle, better even than the king's men did, and he led the doctor and his pets to the very thickest part of the forest, a place where no man had ever been before, and hid them all in a big hollow tree between high rocks. "We'd better wait here," said Chi-Chi, "till the soldiers have gone back to bed. Then we can go into the land of the monkeys." So there they stayed the whole night through. They often heard the king's men searching and talking in the jungle round about. But they were quite safe, for no one knew of that hiding place but Chi-Chi, not even the other monkeys. At last, when daylight began to come through the thick leaves overhead, they heard Queen Ermintrude saying in a very tired voice that it was no use looking anymore. They might as well go back and get some sleep. As soon as the soldiers had all gone home, Chi-Chi brought the doctor and his animals out of the hiding place, and they set off for the land of the monkeys. It was a long, long way, and they often got very tired, especially Gub-Gub. But when he cried, they gave him milk out of the coconuts, which he was very fond of. They always had plenty to eat and drink, because Chi-Chi and Polynesia knew all the different kinds of fruits and vegetables that grew in the jungle, and where to find them, like dates and figs and groundnuts and ginger and yams. They used to make their lemonade out of the juice of wild oranges, sweetened with honey, which they got from the bees' nests in hollow trees. No matter what it was they asked for, Chi-Chi and Polynesia always seemed to be able to get it for them, or something like it. They even got the doctor some tobacco one day, when he had finished what he had brought with him and wanted to smoke. At night they slept in tents made of palm leaves, on thick, soft beds of dried grass, and after a while they got used to walking such a lot and did not get so tired, and enjoyed the life of travel very much. But they were always glad when the night came and they stopped for their resting time. Then the doctor used to make a little fire of sticks And after they had had their supper, they would sit around it in a ring, listening to Polynesia singing songs about the sea, or to Chi-Chi telling stories of the jungle. And many of the tales that Chi-Chi told were very interesting, because although the monkeys had no history books of their own before Dr. Dolittle came to write them for them, they remember everything that happened by telling stories to their children. And Chi-Chi spoke of many things his grandmother had told him, tales of long, long ago, before Noah and the flood, of the days when men dressed in bearskins and lived in holes in the rock and ate their mutton raw, because they did not know what cooking was, having never seen a fire. And he told them of the great mammoths and lizards as long as a train that wandered over the mountains in those times, nibbling from the treetops. And often they got so interested listening that when he had finished, they found their fire had gone right out, and they had to scurry around to get more sticks and build a new one. Now, when the king's army had gone back and told the king that they couldn't find the doctor, the king sent them out again and told them that they must stay in the jungle till they caught him. So all this time, while the doctor and his animals were going along towards the land of the monkeys, thinking themselves quite safe, they were still being followed by the king's men. If Chi-Chi had known this, he would have most likely hidden them again, but he didn't know it. One day, Chi-Chi climbed up a high rock and looked out over the treetops. When he came down, he saw they were now quite close to the land of the monkeys and would soon be there. And that same evening, sure enough, they saw Chi-Chi's cousin and a lot of other monkeys who had not yet got sick, sitting in the trees by the edge of the swamp, looking and waiting for them. And when they saw the famous doctor really come, these monkeys made a tremendous noise, cheering and waving leaves and swinging out of the branches to greet him. They wanted to carry his bag and his trunk and everything he had, and one of the bigger ones even carried Gub-Gub, who had got tired again. Then the two of them rushed on in front to tell the sick monkeys that the great doctor had come at last. But the king's men, who were still following, had heard the noise of the monkeys cheering, and they at last knew where the doctor was, and hastened on to catch him. The big monkey carrying Gub-Gub was coming along behind slowly, and saw the captain of the army sneaking through the trees, so he hurried after the doctor and told him to run. Then they all ran harder than they had ever run in their lives, and the king's men, coming after them, began to run too, and the captain ran hardest of all. Then the doctor tripped over his medicine bag and fell in the mud, and the captain thought he would surely catch him this time. But the captain had very long ears, though his hair was very short, and as he sprang forward to take hold of the doctor, one of his ears caught fast in a tree, and the rest of the army had to stop and help him. By this time the doctor had picked himself up, and on they went again, running and running, and Chi-Chi shouted, "It's all right! We haven't far to go now!" But before they could get into the land of the monkeys, they came to a steep cliff with a river flowing below. This was the end of the kingdom of Jolliginki, and the land of the monkeys was on the other side, across the river. And Jip, the dog, looked down over the edge of the steep, steep cliff and said, "Golly, how are we ever going to get across?" "Oh dear," said Gub-Gub, "the king's men are quite close now. Look at them. I'm afraid we're going to be taken back to prison again." And he began to weep. But the big monkey who was carrying the pig dropped him on the ground and cried out to the other monkeys, "Boys, a bridge! Quick, make a bridge! We've only got a minute to do it. They've got the captain loose and he's coming on like a deer. Get lively! A bridge! A bridge!" The doctor began to wonder what they were going to make a bridge out of, and he gazed around to see if they had any boards hidden any place. But when he looked back at the cliff, there, hanging across the river, was a bridge all ready for him, made of living monkeys. For while his back was turned, the monkeys, quick as a flash, had made themselves into a bridge, just by holding hands and feet. And the big one shouted to the doctor, walk over, all of you, hurry!" Gub-Gub was a bit scared, walking on such a narrow bridge at that dizzy height above the river, but he got over all right, and so did all of them. John Dolittle was the last to cross, and just as he was getting to the other side, the king's men came rushing up to the edge of the cliff. Then they shook their fists and yelled with rage, for they saw they were too late. The doctor and all his animals were safe in the land of the monkeys, and the bridge was pulled across to the other side. Then Chi-Chi turned to the doctor and said, "Many great explorers and gray-bearded naturalists have lain long weeks hidden in the jungle waiting to see the monkeys do that trick. We never let a white man get a glimpse of it before. You were the first to see the famous Bridge of Apes." And the doctor felt very pleased. Chapter 8. The Leader of the Lions. John Dolittle now became dreadfully, awfully busy. He found hundreds and thousands of monkeys, sick gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, dog-faced baboons, marmosets, gray monkeys, red ones, all kinds, and many had died. The first thing he did was to separate the sick ones from the well ones. Then he got Chi-Chi and his cousin to build him a little house of grass. The next thing, he made all the monkeys who were still well come and be vaccinated. And for 3 days and 3 nights, the monkeys kept coming from the jungle and the valleys and the hills to the little house of grass where the doctor sat all day and all night vaccinating and vaccinating. Then he had another housemate, a big one, with a lot of beds in it, and he put all the sick ones in the house. But so many were sick, there were not enough well ones to do the nursing. So he sent messages to the other animals, like the lions and the leopards and the antelopes, to come and help with the nursing. But the leader of the lions was a very proud creature, and when he came to the doctor's big house full of beds, he seemed angry and scornful. "How dare you ask me, sir?" he said, glaring at the doctor. "Do you dare ask me, the king of beasts, to wait on a lot of dirty monkeys? Why, I wouldn't even eat them between meals." Although the lion looked very terrible, the doctor tried hard not to seem afraid of him. "I didn't ask you to eat them," he said quietly, "and besides, they're not dirty. They've all had a bath this morning. Your coat looks as though it needed brushing, badly. Now listen, and I'll tell you something. The day might come when the lions get sick, and if you don't help the other animals now, the lions might find themselves left all alone when they are in trouble. That often happens to proud people. The lions are never in trouble, they only make trouble," said the leader, turning up his nose, and he stalked away into the jungle, feeling he had been rather smart and clever. Then the leopards got proud too, and said they wouldn't help. And then, of course, the antelopes. Although they were too shy and timid to be rude to the doctor like the lion, they pawed the ground and smiled foolishly, and they said that they had never been nurses before. And now the poor doctor was worried frantic, wondering where he could get help enough to take care of all these thousands of monkeys in bed. But the leader of the lions, when he got back to his den, saw his wife, the queen lioness, come running out to meet him with her hair untidy. "One of the cubs won't eat," she said. "I don't know what to do with him. He hasn't taken a thing since last night." And she began to cry and shake with nervousness, for she was a good mother, even though she was a lioness. So the leader went into his den and looked at his children, two very cunning little cubs lying on the floor, and one of them seemed quite poorly. Then the lion told his wife, quite proudly, just what he had said to the doctor, and she got so angry, she nearly drove him out of the den. "You never did have a grain of sense," she screamed. "All the animals from here to the Indian Ocean are talking about this wonderful man and how he can cure any kind of sickness and how kind he is, the only man in the whole world who can talk the language of the animals. And now, when we have a sick baby on our hands, you must go and offend him. You great booby! Nobody but a fool is ever rude to a good doctor. You—" She started pulling her husband's hair. "Go back to that white man at once," she yelled, "and tell him you're sorry. And take all the other empty-headed lions with you, and those stupid leopards and antelopes. Then do everything the doctor tells you. Work hard, and perhaps he'll be kind enough to come and see the cub later. Now be off! Hurry, I tell you! You're not fit to be a father." And she went into the den next door where another mother lion lived, and told her all about it. So the leader of the lions went back to the doctor and said, "I happened to be passing by this way, and I thought I'd look in. Got any help yet?" "No," said the doctor, "I haven't, and I'm dreadfully worried." "Help is pretty hard to get these days," said the lion. "Animals don't seem to want to work anymore. You can't blame them. In a way, well, seeing you're in difficulties, I don't mind doing what I can, just to oblige you, as long as I don't have to wash the creatures. And I have told all the other hunting animals to come and do their share. The leopard should be here any minute now. Oh, and by the way, we've got a sick cub at home. I don't think there's much the matter with him myself, but the wife is anxious. If you are around that way this evening, you might take a look at him, will you?" Then the doctor was very happy, for all the lions and the leopards and the antelopes and the giraffes and the zebras, all the animals of the forest and the mountains and the plains, came to help him in his work. There were so many of them that he had to send some away, and only kept the cleverest. And now very soon the monkeys began to get better. At the end of the week, the big house full of beds was half empty, and at the end of the second week, the last monkey got well. Then the doctor's work was done, and he was so tired he went to bed and slept for 3 days without even turning over. Chapter 9. The Monkey's Council. Chi-Chi stood outside the doctor's door, keeping everybody away till he woke up. Then John Dolittle told the monkeys that he must now go back to Puddleby. They were very surprised at this, for they had thought he was going to stay with them forever. And that night, all the monkeys got together in the jungle to talk it over. And the chief chimpanzee rose up and said, Why is it the good man is going away? Is he not happy here with us?" But none of them could answer him. Then the grand gorilla got up and said, "I think we all should go to him and ask him to stay. Perhaps if we make him a new house and a bigger bed, and promise him plenty of monkey servants to work for him and make life pleasant for him, perhaps then he will not wish to go." Then Chi-Chi got up, and all the others whispered, "Shh, look, Chi-Chi, the great traveler, is about to speak." And Chi-Chi said to the monkeys, "My friends, I'm afraid it is useless to ask the doctor to stay. He owes money in Puddleby, and he says he must go back and pay it." And the monkeys asked him, "What is money?" Then Chi-Chi told them that in the land of the white men, you could get nothing without money. You could do nothing without money, and that it was almost impossible to live without money. And some of them asked, "But can you not even eat and drink without paying?" But Chi-Chi shook his head and then told them that even he, when he was the organ grinder, had been made to ask the children for money. And the chief chimpanzee turned to the oldest orangutan and said, "Cousin, surely this men be strange creatures. Who would wish to live in such a land? My gracious, how paltry!" Then Chi-Chi said, "When we were coming to you, we had no boat to cross the sea in, and no money to buy food to eat on our journey. So man lent us some biscuits, and we said we would pay him when we came back. And we borrowed a boat from a sailor, but it was broken on the rocks when we reached the shores of Africa. Now the doctor says he must go back and get the sailor another boat, because the man was poor and his ship was all he had." And the monkeys were all silent for a while, sitting quiet still upon the ground and thinking hard. At last the biggest baboon got up and said, "I do not think we ought to let this good man leave our land till we have given him a fine present to take with him, that he may know we are grateful for all he has done for us." And a little tiny red monkey who was sitting up in a tree shouted down, "I think that too!" And then they all cried out, making a great noise, "Yes, yes, let us give him the finest present a white man ever had." Now they began to wonder and ask one another what would be the best thing to give him. And one said, 50 bags of coconuts, and another, 100 bunches of bananas. At least he shall not have to buy his fruit in the land where you pay to eat. But Chi-Chi told them that all these things would be too heavy to carry so far and would go bad before half was eaten. "If you want to please him," he said, "give him an animal. You may be sure he will be kind to it. Give him some rare animal they have not got in the menageries." And the monkeys asked him, "What are menageries?" Then Chi-Chi explained to them that menageries were places in the land of the white men where animals were put in cages for people to come and look at. And the monkeys were very shocked and said to one another, "These men are like thoughtless young ones, stupid and easily amused. Shh, it is a prison he means." So they asked Chi-Chi what rare animal it could be that they should give to the doctor, one the white man had not seen before. And the major of the marmosets asked, "Have they an iguana over there?" But Chi-Chi said, "Yes, there is one in the London Zoo." And another asked, "Have they an okapi?" But Chi-Chi said, "Yes, in Belgium, where my organ grinder took me 5 years ago. They had an okapi in a big city they call Antwerp." And another asked, "Have they a push-me-pull-you?" Then Chi-Chi said, "No, no white man has ever seen a push-me-pull-you. Let us give him that."